Good morning, everyone.
Morning, good morning.
Good morning. Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov. We are in Perek Dalid in Middos, Mishnah Bays. We go to our diagram 3.
Diagram 3, John.
Diagram 3. We've entered, we're looking east to west. We've entered Shushan Habira gate that brought us to the Harabayas. We came to the Soreg. We walked through it to the Chel. We walked up 6 steps, 12 steps to get to the Ezras Noshim. We walked up 15 steps to get to the Sha'ar Nikanor. We walked into the Ezras Yisrael. If you're permitted to, you walked into the Ezras Kohanim, Mizbeach, and then the area called between the Mizbeach and the Ulam, Bein Ulam la Mizbeach. The Ulam had 12 steps. Each step rose to a height of half an amma, and this is going to be critical to remember. We learned in a Mishnah earlier that all steps in the Beis Hamikdash rose up an amma. Now, the depth of the step was generally 1 amma, half amma. Well, I was a half amma up. Right, a step goes up and then it goes in to put your foot down. So it's a half an amma up, and then you put your foot down. And when we came to the Ulam, we learned about the 12 steps that took you from the Azora. This box is the Azora. We're not talking about the Ezras Noshim. This box here is Azora. In the Azora, there's a separate structure called Heichal and Ulam. This rectangular structure is Ulam. You walked up 12 steps to get to the Ulam. In other words, the area around the Heichal and the Ulam was 6 amos lower than this structure. So when you walked into the Azora, you were at a certain level. We calculated that in previous Mishnayos. You walked up 6 steps to go into, you walked up 12 steps to go into the Ezra high. That means the Ezras Noshim is 6 amos higher than the Har Habayis, 12 times a half. You walked up 15 steps of the Sha'ar Nikanor, 15 times a half is 7.5, which means when you walk into the Azora, you're now 13.5 amos higher than you were at the Har Habayis. Here's the Har Habayis. Walked up 12 steps, you're now 6 amos higher in the Ezras Noshim as compared to Har Habayis. You took another 15 steps, that's another 7.5 amos to get into Ezras Yisrael. Now 6 and 7.5 is 13.5. So when you entered the Azor, you're now 13.5 amos higher than the Har Habayis. Then we learned about Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Shita, that there was a duchan here, a platform on which the Leviim sang their shira every day, the shir shayom for the karbanos. And that was another 2.5 amos. So 13.5 and 2.5 is 15.5 is 16. Now you walked all the way towards the Ulam, you have another 12 steps. 12 steps, 12 times a half is 6. So now you're another 6 amos higher. So we just were at 16. We gained 6 amos in the Ezras Noshim, 7.5 at Sha'ar Nikanor, that's 13.5. The Duchan was 2.5. That's 16, and another 6 amos into this structure, that's 22. Meaning, this structure, Heichal and Ulam, if you're standing in it, you are 22 amos higher than the surrounding Har Habayis. But this structure is 6 amos higher than the area around it. There was a lot of excavation work needed to be done to build the Beis Hamikdash. It worked on an incline. You walked higher and higher and higher. Steps up, you walked. Additional steps, you walked. So you have to distinguish between this area where the Mizbeach is and this open area all around and this structure. If you're in this structure, you're 22 amos higher than the Har Habayis. And if you're in this structure, you're 6 amos higher than this area around the Ulam and the Heichel. In other words, the Ulam and the Heichel are 6 amos higher than the Azara. And where we are right now is right here. We're right here. We learned about the doors of the Heichel. There was a difference of opinion about whether the doors were 4 doors, 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside, or there were 8 doors that had spirals in that. We learned that in the last Mishnah. But this is where we are right now. We're going to study about the construction of the Heichel. Now, the construction of the Heichel is quite complex in the Mishnayos that follow, for a couple of Mishnayos. We're going to do the best we can through the diagrams to explain what these walls were around the Heichel. The Heichel itself is this room. The first room has the shulchan, the table that has the lechem upon him, and it's on the north side. The south side of the Heichel has the menorah, and in the center there's the small Mizbeach HaKetoros. Towards the back of this chamber, there is a partition, and behind the partition there is the Aron HaKodesh. But as you can see, this area in here has multiple walls around it, and we're going to take a look at those walls today. This area in here is called Heichel. The rectangular building is called Ulam. There are some times where the Ulam and the Heichel together are called Heichel, but as we study it, we need to differentiate between the two. We have learned about the Ulam. We're now walking into the Heichel and studying the walls of the Heichel. Remember, we learned that the door of the Ulam, which is here, is the largest door in the Beis HaMikdash. All the doors in the Beis HaMikdash are 20 high, 10 wide. The door of the Ulam is 40 high, 20 wide. We've entered that huge opening. There's no door there. It's a curtain. The opening is 40 high, 20 wide, closed by a curtain. Now we come to the Heichel. The Heichel is the standard sized opening, half of the opening of the Ulam. Instead of 40 by 20, it's 20 by 10. And this is the entryway to the Heichel. Again, there were 2 sets of doors, which we studied about last time. Now, as an overview, before we go into the Mishnayos, so we can understand the words we're reading, let's take a look at diagram 31. We looked at this briefly last time. Here's the opening to the Ulam, and here's the opening to the Heichel. And this itself is the Heichel. Behind it is the Kodesh Kodashim. Now you can see there's a whole set of walls around the Heichel. These walls were not solid walls. The walls actually created corridors through which you were able to walk. So there's a wall, corridor, wall, corridor, wall, corridor, wall, etc. The number of openings here are 5 on the north, 5 on the south, and 3 to the west. Take a look why that happened. The first 3 openings go all around the Heichel. Next one goes all around. The third one goes all around. The fourth one ends at the west. The fifth one comes to a dead end at the west. And so is true for the southern side. So the first 3 corridors actually go all around the Heichel. 1, 2, and 3, you can see, do not come to dead ends. 1 goes all around, 2 goes all around, 3 goes all around, but 4 goes from the eastern wall of the Heichel to the western wall of the Heichel, and then it's closed. It does not go around. So the first 3 corridors near the Heichel go all around. The last 2 do not go all around, but end at the western wall of the Heichel. Now the names of these corridors, the one that's right next to, you can see it in your diagram, it's written in, the corridor right next to the Heichel is called Kosel HaHeichel, the wall of the Heichel. Now, while it is the wall of the Heichel, it's not a solid wall. There's a wall, and there is, between the 2 walls, 4 amos of walking space. Between this wall, which is the outer wall of the Heichel, and the next wall, there is 6 amos, and this is called the Teh. This is called the place that is, it has rooms in it that we use for the Kohanim. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. This is called the Teh. This corridor, the second corridor around the Heichel, is called the Teh, and that's because it had ta'im. It had rooms in it. So again, we have the Heichel here. The wall around the Heichel is called Kosel HaHeichel. It goes all around, and it's a wall, and 4 amos in between. Then you have the outer wall of the Heichel, and the next wall, and in between is called the Teh, and that's 6 amos of corridor space. The third one is called Kosel HaTeh. It is the wall of the Teh, and this area is 3 amos of walking space. The next area, which we're not going to learn about today, is called the Masiba. And then the last area is called Kosel HaMasiba, the wall of the Masiba. What we're going to be looking at today are the first 3 walls, which are corridors. Kosel HaHeichel, right next to the Heichel. The Teh, the corridor with compartments. And the Kosel HaTeh, the wall to the Teh. Again, the Kosel HaHeichel, a wall, 4 amos corridor, a wall. The Teh, 6 amos corridor, a wall. And Kosel HaTeh, a corridor of 3 amos. These 3 go all around the Heichel. The last 2 do not, and we're not going to be discussing those today. Go back to diagram 3, please. See the Ulam, the Heichel, the walls. If you take a look now between 2 walls, this picture is not as in depth as this picture. This picture shows you the Kosel HaTeh and then the Teh, the corridor that had compartments in it. This picture is emphasizing the compartments. You can see between 2 walls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 compartments in this corridor. And these 5 compartments or chambers were used for the Kohanim for different purposes. This building was not 1 floor. It was multiple floors. So that on the first floor, there were 5 compartments on the north and the south. On the second floor, there are 5 compartments on the north and the south. On the third floor, there are 5 compartments on the north and the south. And in the west, there are 3 compartments on the first floor, 3 compartments on the second floor, 2 compartments on the top floor, and therefore there are 38 compartments. 5 on each floor, north and south. But north and south had 3 floors. That means on the north side, first floor you had 5, second floor, third floor, 5 times 3 is 15. The same thing for the south, 30. In the west, first floor 33, second floor 36, third floor 2 more 38. And the Mishnah tomorrow will tell us that there are 38 compartments. To understand really what I just said, take a look at diagram 34A. Diagram 34A has the 12 steps to go up to the ulam. Now, what does it mean if there are 12? We need to be shiputzniks here. We need to be kablanim. You're in, before you go up these steps, you're at a certain level. The mizbeach is here. And I'm going to keep on going back and forth between the pictures. Diagram 3, the mizbeach is here. You're now going to go up 12 steps. Here are the 12 steps. Diagram 34A, here are the 12 steps. But on the right side and the left side, there are no steps. The steps are in the center. And as you go up these steps, you eventually come to a height of 6 amos, 12 steps, a half an amma up each step. So this area, as we said, the heichal, the ulam and the heichal are going to be 6 amos higher than the azara. Well, now look what happened. This is the ulam. The top step is where the ulam is. Well, that means that underneath the ulam, there was a basement. The steps, you went up the steps, you're 6 amos higher, and underneath those 6 amos to the right and the left, there's sort of a basement. How high was that basement? 6 amos. In these 6 amos, basement is floor number 1 of the walls we just described. Then there's floor number 2, and that's why they're showing you this in the picture. This is the first floor, 6 amos high. It's right underneath the floor of the ulam. And then above that, there's the second set of compartments, and above that, the third set of compartments. The compartments are in here. And that's what we're going to learn about today. If you look in the picture, you can see there's a little door. There are compartments, there are these openings that have like circles in them. Let's ignore those for now. There is a door here, and there is a door here. When you went into that door, there were 5 chambers inside that corridor. One floor below the basement, there were 5 chambers inside that wall, that corridor. If you went 1 flight up, you had 5 more chambers inside that corridor. The other corridors were walking areas. The place where the chambers were in this corridor. So there are 5 chambers on floor number 1, which is below the floor of the ulam. Then there's 5 chambers inside this door, which is floor number 2. And then floor number 3 has another 5 chambers. That's the bird's eye view of what we're going to learn about today. Now let's take a look at 34B. 34B, rather than 34A, is showing you the door to the Heichel, which is 20 by 10. Remember, we learned about the door of the Heichel had like a gold vineyard on top of it with gold grapes. Here they are. And the wall of the Heichel, the eastern wall of the Heichel, had 2 windows that had the 2 crowns. We learned about that. So they're showing you that. But the large door, the 20 by 10 door, was not the first door that got opened in the morning to start the avoda. You see there's a door to the right and a door to the left. These are called pishpashin, small doors. One to the north and one to the south. So if you walked up the 12 steps, you entered the ulam. The ulam is 11 amos wide, and in the ulam you would see the big door, 20 by 10 to the Heichal, you would see a little door to the north and a little door to the south. It is these two little doors that are depicted in 34a above. There's a little door and there's a little door. And if you went through the northern door, you couldn't go through the southern door. The Mishnah will tell us why. If you went into this northern door, this is where you were. You walked through the northern door, and you walked into a corridor that had 5 compartments. And if you took the staircase down, there's staircases inside this door. You can take a staircase down to go to the compartments on the first floor, which is the basement. You can take a staircase upstairs, which has 5 compartments on the 3rd floor. That's what we're going to learn about today. This is the picture that we need to keep in mind. We have the Heichal. Around the Heichal is the Kosel Heichal. After that is the Teh, the corridor with compartments, and after that is the Kosel HaTeh. These 3 walls went all around, whereas the 2 last walls came to a dead end at the northern wall. So now let's take a look at page 57 in our Masechta Middos, Mishnah Beis. Ushnei pishpeshin hoyelo l'shar hagadol. There were 2 small doors, which is what we just looked at in diagram 34b. There were 2 small doors to the right and the left of the door of the Heichal, which we call the Shar Hagadol. Echad batzafon, one was on the north, the Echad badorom, and one was on the south. Shebadorom, the little door to the south, Lo nichnas bo oda me'olam. We're now on page 58 of our Masechta Middos. No one ever walked through this door. We're going to soon see what that means. No one ever walked through this door. They made a door that was never allowed to be open. We're going to learn about this door. As everybody stay comfortable. But the Mishnah first says that they built a door. We're learning about the second Beis HaMikdash. They built a door, going back to 34b. This door on the north is going to be used to get into the Heichal. This door on the south, the Mishnah right now says, was never open. They built a door that was never to be opened. Why? We'll see. The Mishnah says at the bottom of page 57 and top of page 58, Shabadorom, the southern little door, Lo nichnas ba'oda me'olam, no human being ever walked through that door. V'olav hu mefurash al yedei Yecheskel, and Yecheskel in his prophecy tells us very clearly, as we've said numerous times, before the second Beis HaMikdash was built, Yecheskel had a prophecy of how to build the third Beis HaMikdash, B'mheira v'yameinu. And there were certain aspects of the second Beis HaMikdash that they built similar to the first Beis HaMikdash, and a number of things they did in the second Beis HaMikdash that made it look like the third Beis HaMikdash. This is one of the things that the Mishnah quotes as a source to build the second Beis HaMikdash, a pasuk of Yecheskel from the third Beis HaMikdash. And what does Yecheskel say about this southern little door next to the Heichal? Shenema, Yecheskel says in chapter 44, Vayomer Elai Hashem, Hashem said to me, Ashar hazeh sogur yeh, this door, meaning this southern little door next to the Heichal, sogur yeh, it shall remain closed, lo yipaseach, it shall not be open, v'ish lo yavovo, and no man should go into it, ki Hashem Elokei Yisrael bo, because God's Shechina will come through this door, v'hoya sogur, and therefore it shall remain closed. Of course, this whole concept that Yecheskel saw the third Beis HaMikdash before the second was built we explained a bit, but it needs a lot more explanation for which we don't have time today. And this idea is the concept that the southern pish pesh, the southern little door next to the Heichel, was never open for a human being. And we'll soon see that there's an exception to that. Was never open for a human being because that's where the Shekhinah comes. This whole idea that the Shekhinah needs its own door, of course, is problematic on the surface. The Shekhinah doesn't need doors to go through. But for us, it's sort of a symbol that this is dedicated to the king. You have a palace, and this is God's palace, and human beings come to the palace to see the king, quote unquote, to appear before the king. But there's an area that's designated the king's entry. And so for that purpose, to keep in our minds that this is God's palace and there's no entry in a certain area, this Pishpei Darom, the southern little door, 34b, you're inside the Ulam, and you're looking at the big door of the Heichel, the northern little door, and the southern little door. And God told Yecheskel, the southern little door is not to be open, it's to remain closed. That's the door through which my Shekhinah comes, and no man should go through. That's what the Mishnah says, and that's what the pasuk is interpreted as being. I sent out a handout, which I think was included last night, and that's the psukim in Yecheskel. I hope everybody has it. We're going to learn a few psukim in Yecheskel. The first page is Yecheskel Perek Mem Gimel, which is a pasuk that the Mishnah just quoted. And then the second pasuk, which the Mishnah didn't quote, comes from Yecheskel Mem Vav, and we're going to take a look at those two psukim. So let's take a look at Yecheskel chapter 43, chapter 44, the very beginning. Vayoshev osi derech shar hamikdash hachitzon, and God took me out through the opening of the mikdash. Hapone kodim, facing south. In other words, Yecheskel was not. Yecheskel, if you go through, we're always learning about diagram 3, east to west. This pasuk is describing Yecheskel looking west to east. So it says, Vayoshev osi derech shah mikdash. The Ribono Shalom took me out through the Shar HaMikdash HaChitzon, the outer entry, which means the Heichel. In this pasuk, it means the Heichel right here. The Ribono Shalom took me out through this door, the Heichel. Hapona Kodim, I was facing east. So instead of facing east to west, he's in west looking east. And he's now looking out this door of the Heichel in the Ulam. V'hu sagur. And there was a door that was locked, which is the southern little door. Vayomer Eli Hashem, Hashem said to me, this is the pasuk that the Mishnah just quoted, Hashar hazeh sogu yiyeh lo yipaseach, this entry shall be closed and shall never open, v'ish lo yavovo, and no man shall go through it, ki Hashem Elokei Yisrael bovo, because God's Shekhinah comes through it, v'ho yisog, and therefore the door should remain closed. Now, the pasuk, which the Mishnah didn't quote, continues and says, Es hanosi, nosihu, yeshiv bo lecho lechem lefnei Hashem. This southern little door can be opened. We're getting the first exception. It can be opened for a certain person who's called the Nasi, the prince, and the prince can go into this door, and in this door, the Nasi, the prince, we'll soon see who this is, he can eat his meal. In other words, this prince has a private place in the Beis HaMikdash to eat his food. Instead of as the other Kohanim, when the Kohanim ate from the Korbanos, they had different places in the Beis HaMikdash to eat, and they ate together. This special prince should have his privacy. He's a prince, and he shouldn't have to eat with a lot of people. He should have a private dining room, so to speak. So this southern door, which went into a southern corridor, that was for the Shekhinah to come in, symbolically. Shekhinah is telling us that this is God's palace. And the door can be opened so that the prince can come in, Lecho Lechem of Hashem, Miderach Ulam Hashar Yavo Umidarko Yetzei. Who is this prince? Now, first let's take a look at Rashi. At the bottom of the page, Rashi says, Soguyia. What door is God talking about when he told Yecheskel shall remain closed? Raboseinu hamidu hamikra hazeh bepishpesh hadromi shahoy l'shar heheichel pishpesh pesach katan. Rashi quotes our Mishnah that we just learned, that this doorway, this little door that must remain closed, is the little doorway on the southern side of the huge doorway of the Heichel. Now, who is this Nasi for whom we can open the door and he's permitted to go in and eat his meal? If you go again to the left column of Rashi, Es HaNasi, Rashi says Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is called the prince, and he doesn't have to eat from the korbanos he eats from with all the other Kohanim. He's the Kohen Gadol. He has a private chamber in which he eats his korbanos, and this chamber was inside the corridor of the southern, that you went into from the little southern door. If you take a look at the left-hand side of your page, I underlined it in the Metzudos David, Es HaNasi, Ratzaloma Aval Es HaNasi Hu Melech HaMashiach. And if you take a look at the bottom of the page, the Radak, Umidarko Yetzei, Me'osa Derech Shenichnas Yetzei, V'HaNasi Hazeh Yeh Melech HaMashiach. It's a prophecy about Mashiach. When Mashiach enters the Beis HaMikdash and he wants to eat, he will eat in the private chamber that you go into through this southern door. The small southern door has a corridor, and either the Kohen Gadol ate there or Melech HaMashiach ate there. Now this raises an issue which we don't have time to go through, but with your thinking caps on, you immediately have a question. If this, go back to diagram 3. A person is not Tomei. He's a Yisrael. He's ritually pure, no Tumah issues. He went through Shushan Habira for our sake, for our purposes. He came into the Har HaBayis, went through the Sorek, went through the Chel, went through the Ezras Nashim, went up the 15 steps, and he came to Shar Yisrael. He came to Ezras Yisrael. Thin sliver of area. It's noted in the diagram, Ezras Yisrael. Ezras Yisrael is 11 amos long and 135 amos wide. 11 by 135. And that's it. A Yisrael that just wanted to come to the Beis HaMikdash could not go any further than Ezras Yisrael. If he was bringing a korban, he had to put his hands on top of the korban. He had to do other things for the korban. He was for that purpose only allowed to go further into the Ezra's Kohanim and go to the area of the Mizbeach where he would have to put his hands on the korban or lift up parts of the korban and then leave. But this is about as far as the Yisrael is going to get into the Beis HaMikdash. He cannot go on the steps of the Ulam. He can't go into the Ulam, and he certainly can't go into the Heichel. This is Kohen area. A Kohen can come into the Ulam. A Kohen can come in to the Heichel. Somebody has to do the Ketores every day. Someone has to light the menorah every day. There's avoda for the Lechem Aponim. Kohanim can enter here. So if we're talking about the Kohen Gadol entering through the little southern door to eat privately, that's not a problem, because a Kohen can enter this area. But if we're talking about, as the Metzuda says and the Radak says, that this is a private chamber, the southern door opens to a private chamber where Melech HaMashiach can eat. Melech HaMashiach is from the tribe of Yehuda, David ben Yishai. He's a Yisrael. How does he get to this area? How does a person from Shevet Yehuda get this far in the Beis HaMikdash if he's not a Kohen? Leave that question to the side, but that's what the Metzudos and the Radak tell us. So while the Mishnah says, and the pasuk, the first pasuk that we quote, Mem Dal Aleph, says that this door should never be opened, pasuk Aleph, pasuk Beis. Pasuk Gimel says that the Nasi, the prince, can go through this southern little door and eat in there in a private area, and that's either Kohen Gadol or Melech HaMashiach Meher Yameinu. That's the first exception, that there is a person, Kohen Gadol or Mashiach, that can open the door and go in there to eat. And the Kohen Gadol did other things in this corridor that is described in Maseches Tamid. We go to the next page of Yecheskel, we get the next exception to the southern little door at the Heichel not being open. Perek Mem Vav, Ko Amar Hashem Elokim. So says Hashem. Shar hechotzer hapnimis hapone kodem, the same door that we just described in Perek Mem Daled, this little southern door, this little door on the southern side of the Heichel wall. Yes, sogur sheishes yimei hamaisa, 6 days of the week it shall be closed. Now, during those 6 days of the week it's closed. Nobody can go in there except during those 6 days the Kohen Gadol or Mashiach can go in there to eat. And now we have a new exception. Uvayom HaShabbos yipaseach, uvayom HaChodesh yipaseach. The southern door was opened in the morning and stayed open the whole day on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. And this gave people the ability, even if you were a Yisrael, going back to diagram 3, you're standing at Ezras Yisrael. The Ulam curtain, you're standing here. Of course, you have to stand in a place where the Mizbeach is not blocking you. The Ulam curtain is open. The Heichel is right here, the doors. They opened the southern door. And those who were in the Ezras Yisrael, that's how we're going to learn today, those who were in the Ezras Yisrael were able to bow down. And they bowed down with the southern door open. The special southern door was open to give Jews an opportunity to bow down into this holy area on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. So now we have 2 exceptions. In Perek Mem Daled it said the southern little door at the Heichel should not be open. But the prince can go in there to eat, meaning the Kohen Gadol or Melech HaMashiach. In Perek Mem Vav, we learn a new exception, that on Shabbos and on Rosh Chodesh, the door was open from morning to night, and we get this now in Pasuk Gimel, V'hishtachavu am ha'oretz pesach hashar hahu b'shabosos u'v'chadoshim l'fnei Hashem. And the people, Klal Yisrael, would be able to bow on Shabbos and on Rosh Chodesh before the Ribono Shel Olam. So a lot of what we just learned in these psukim, there are questions whether this was true in the second base. Well, one thing was true in the second Beis HaMikdash, from what we just learned. The Heichel door had a small little door to the north and a small little door to the south. There's no question about that. That existed in the second Beis HaMikdash. And the way you got into the Heichel was through the small northern door. And then through the small northern door, you opened the big door, which we'll probably see tomorrow. And this southern door was not opened. Now the question is, in the second Beis HaMikdash, was it opened on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh as Yecheskel prophesies for the third Beis HaMikdash? Or in the second Beis HaMikdash, the southern door was permanently closed, And Yecheskel's Nevuah is only for purposes of the third Beis HaMikdash. In the third Beis HaMikdash, the southern little door will be open on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, and for the Kohen Gadol or the Melech HaMashiach. That's third Beis HaMikdash. In second Beis HaMikdash, the southern door was not used at all. That's one way to look at it. Or even in the second Beis HaMikdash, the southern door was used Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, and for the Kohen Gadol. So that's where we'll stop now for our Masechta Middos, and we're going to take a look tomorrow about how they open the Heichel doors. And the way they open the Heichel doors are going to be diagrams 34C and 34D. There's machlokas in the Mishnah how you open the big doors. Open the big doors of the Heichel, you walked into the Ulam. You didn't just go over to the big doors and open the big doors. You went through you opened the northern little door, walked into the northern little door, and made your way back into the Heichel to open the Heichel doors from the inside of the Heichel, which we'll study about tomorrow. Again, the opening of the Heichel doors was critical because no avod in the Beis HaMikdash could be done, no karbonos could be brought until the Heichel doors were opened.